Welcome to JCTV Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host, Rick J. And today I have a special guest by the name of Dan Woodward from Rolla, Missouri. Please join me, if you would, in welcoming Mr. Dan Woodward from Rolla, Missouri. Welcome, Dan. It's great to have you here.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Super. You know, the JCTV is supported by many art enthusiasts across the United States, Missouri, and even overseas now, thanks to YouTube. So I know those folks are, a lot of them are anxious to meet finally Dan Woodward, which I've talked about. And if you remember Dr. Joan Stack and president of the Historical Society of Missouri, Bob Pretty, recently spoke about the works of Dan Woodward. So we're going to find a little bit more. So now, once again, turning to Dan Woodward, tell us a little bit about Dan, if I may call you by your first name.
Certainly.
Good to have you here.
Thank you, and it's good to see you again, Rick. Yes, I think I feel good about having been in a community that supports the arts so well.
And that's Rolla, Missouri.
Rolla, Missouri. We have so many artists, and we've had an art community going for a long time. It's called Arts Rolla, and it was started back in 1984, I believe. And then we have another local group called Local Color, and we get out and paint together. It's been running that long also. And so they're more plein air painters. We kind of have a meeting once a month, first Monday of the month, and it's a show and tell, and we get new artists constantly. It's a wonderful thing. I think to have an art community supporting each other is probably the best way to do it.
Yes.
You know, to really come together. It helps not only encourage, but gives you details about what's going on in the art world, and you can find places to show.
And you draw from more locations other than Rolla, Missouri, because we've got a gentleman not too far from you, David Plank, and those people down around the Salem area. You've drawn me in. I've been to a couple of your presentations where you was a guest speaker and talking about some of the artwork that you've been involved with. So you've even drawn me from this area north of Rolla. So thank you.
Well, we've always been connected. A lot of artists show here.
Many great artists down there, enthusiastic, should we say. So tell us a little bit more about Dan and your community.
Well, we do show all over. So the artists in that area show in St. Louis, and St. Louis artists show with us in Rolla. And also, many belong to the Capital
Arts
here.
Jefferson City Art Club.
Right. And so I think I try to encourage everyone to go out as far as they can.
Now, another lady that has been on the show, Lorraine McFarland. That's, if you remember me speaking about meeting Lorraine McFarland at one of their gatherings presentation. Now, Lorraine is in Texas now. Painting, is invited to go out to a secluded
island.
And
yes.
So that's part of that group also. So sometimes, I guess my point is that we get stuck in our own little area a lot of times. And that's why the show, Spotlight on the Arts and Mid-Missouri Art, is reaching out to all these communities. And Dan is really one to speak well and about Rolla. So go ahead once again.
I should
keep jump-starting you here. I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's what's inspiring to me, and what as you get older, I think you feel like paying back.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I've tried to do in a small way. But I'll tell you, my own project that I've been doing with the Civil War paintings, I have so many people to thank for encouraging me to do that. And Joan Stack is one of those people. She has my back. I ask her questions about correctness in history. And her dad, too, is
John?
one of my favorite artists in the whole state. I think he's probably the tops.
Oh my, that's great. Yes,
I admire his ability to do etchings in the old style, you know,
yes,
following Whistler and Rembrandt.
yes.
Beautiful etchings.
So
And
I know I've talked to Dr. Stack about having her father and her on the show. They're coming, Dr. Joan Stack and Bob Priddy is coming back again. The new site, historical building site will be opening. Believe it is in August, and so they'll be coming back. But that's quite an honor to have you speak about Joe and John and that.
well, they just do so much, you know. People
Yes,
do a
for the
lot
art
to help the
communities.
state and the art community. Yeah, I can't wait to see the new building.
Right. Now we're going to talk specifically about your expeditions, I guess I could call them, and your paintings and how they all came about in the second part. Do you have anything at the moment going that we could talk about?
Well, many things.
Anything? Oh, I see.
as everyone does.
Your plate is full?
When you create, you go a little wild, and you can't always control it, you know. So I have several paintings started, but I still have things to finish up with the Civil War exhibit.
Oh, I see.
I'm trying to encompass all the battles in Missouri and the West, from the west to the Mississippi.
Civil War battles.
Yes, and I go to reenactments, as you know.
Yes,
And
your
so-
excursions, expeditions.
And those people I like to use real people in paintings.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
even if it isn't, I don't want to paint the Civil War through old photos of the Civil War. That's been done already.
And we're going to put a lot of those photos that you've shared of those paintings on the timeline as we're talking. Now, may I jump again back to the State of Missouri Historical Society? You was again recognized by Bob Priddy for restoring a mural.
Oh, that was
So
fun.
Tell us about that. I've got a picture we'll share with that.
Sure. It's a mural of the history of Rolla, Missouri, and it was done back in the 50s, 52, by Sidney Larson, a wonderful artist also.
Which was a student of George
of Thomas Hart Benton.
Thomas Hart Benton.
And was a young man who did he did several murals during the end of the WPA days. You see, Benton was involved with that, and so then industry started asking for murals, and so people bought their own murals after the WPA works. And so Larson was commissioned to do a painting or a mural of our town, the history of it. And it's about 22 feet long by 5 feet.
And where does this show at, so people can take a look?
Well, now it's housed at the University of Missouri in Rolla. I'm sorry, the MS&T now.
MST. It used to be University
Yes,
of Missouri.
and some of us knew it as MSN.
Oh, yes.
Missouri
Going
School of
back.
Mines.
Yes.
But it's on their second floor of their Curtis Law Wilson Library. It's in the center of the campus.
Great facility.
We have a lot of art, as all the universities in Missouri do.
Yes.
You know, we got inspired, I think, by the Capitol. You know, our Capitol building is full of art.
Yes.
And it's sort of spread out, the influence spread out across the state. And so you can go to almost any university and find something wonderful. Like right here at Lincoln, that beautiful Thomas Hart Benton painting
Yes.
that's in their library
Yes.
is worth coming to see.
Right, and we have an Essex gardener now
Is that
is
right?
painting the Buffalo Soldiers of
Okay.
the Civil War.
Yes.
Essex is an instructor, a facilitator here. We'll be interviewing him again on the show in September. So he's sort of followed that Civil War, the Buffalo Soldiers theme, and it's being recognized throughout the United States.
That's a side of the Civil War we don't know enough about. They don't. It's not advertised as much, because I think it seems to me that there were thousands of black soldiers that we didn't know about in our history books now. And so
Exactly.
I think even Lincoln was planning to give the vote to soldiers who had been that had fought in the war.
Interesting.
And that was one of the reasons why Booth heard that speech and may have caused him to do what he did, the dastardly deed of killing the president.
I see.
And that was going too far in his mind. But that was a Civil War thing, too. And I've seen his paintings, the artist you mentioned, the watercolors, I believed.
Yes, I believe so.
And they're beautiful, very beautiful.
Essex gardener, yes,
Yeah.
great. So it's you're really following up with many with the history, and everyone right now it seems like they're really into history. There was just a presentation, I believe it was last evening at the Lincoln Center here, talking about how it's played a big part, the history of the Lincoln University, how it began.
Sure.
So that was last evening.
This all has a little something to do with the Civil War coming forward,
And it's all coming together. Our history's come together finally through arts, the arts and the artists of Missouri, and I'm so happy to see that. And again, JCTV Spotlight on the Arts is doing everything we can to bring all the artists
that's
and
great.
the organizations together.
It really takes a community, and you're part of that community. You're encouraging it to happen.
Thank you. And with your all support and enthusiasm and making the long trips to be on the show, that's really appreciated.
My longest trip was probably to China when I went there to teach one summer and had an exhibit in Taipei. But other than that, I was an educator, so I got to travel around the world and painted all the time.
We
on
don't
the
want to
side.
miss talking about you as an educator. You also love music. You're writing symphonies, but go ahead. I don't want to pull you too far in, but yes, as an educator in China, where he's got a taste even of that art, China and Japanese for myself, and so another element.
I did a couple pictures in Japan at the time too, but watercolors mostly. And even in China, I did watercolors. It's easier to carry, on a trip, and so I think I must have done about 50 in China. They were on display here in Jeff City with the Capital City.
Capital Arts Gallery.
Yeah, I think so. Back in the 80s, early 80s, probably 84, 85.
Excellent. Well, we're about time for a break. So
Okay.
thank you. We'll be right back. When we come back, we learn more about the artist that everyone should know about. That's Mr. Dan Woodward. Stay with us.
Global warming is a problem.
Sound the alarm!
We think it's an important thing to save energy,
To protect the environment,
to protect the future.
Every who in Whoville makes a difference.
We need everyone!
Together, we can all make a difference.
Save energy with Energy Star, and then you can be
Part of the solution.
Go to EnergyStar.gov/kids to see what else you can do.
So here are the keys.
Congratulations, it's officially yours.
I'm sure you'll have many happy years here. Except for you, because you'll be gone 3 years from now, struck down by the same disease that got your father. So you won't be around for them. And sadly, it could have been detected early with a simple test, but you didn't have it. Okay, who wants to check out the backyard?
For a list of tests every man should have, go to ahrq.gov.
And we continue now with a conversation here at the round table with Mr. Dan Woodward from Rolla, Missouri. Dan is loaded with experience and excursions, what have you, throughout the world that he'll share with you now. So back to you, as they say, Dan.
Well, I'm not so sure that I've done that many excursions, but because of my job, I was an educator.
I see.
But first, I left Rolla in at the end of my high school graduation. Hitchhiked to California and worked my way through college, and was in my senior year. It took me longer than 4 years to get through working, and I got the opportunity to go to Vietnam for a good year, and so came back from there and changed my major from science to the humanities.
I see.
And I got a degree in English, and then took some more years and got a teaching credential in English and taught at in the inner city, taught English. And I also, all this time from when I was a child through high school until then was on the side I painted.
I see.
And drew and, just created things. And when I came back from Vietnam, I was more serious about it. And so in the summers when I wasn't teaching, I would take it seriously. And I think probably from about I came back in 1970, or December of '69. But from about 1972 on, I took art seriously. And I really tried to paint the way I wanted to. And
what you felt from inside.
I was always doing it that way, but not seriously,
I think you shared with me at one time that you really have a nature concept within your overall thinking in the beginning.
That's because I lived in the nature.
You lived in the woods.
I grew up on a farm, well, in Missouri it's trees, but it's a farm.
It's a farm, yes. Free farm.
Yes. But as a child, I drew pictures and things. And so it was just natural to keep doing it. And in Vietnam, I wrote some poetry, took it a little more seriously too. And so the writing got more serious. Everything was more serious. War is an opportunity for a person to come of age.
Yes.
If you live through it.
Grew up really fast.
Well, you see what's important in life.
Yes.
And especially little things don't bother you ever again. And so it's like any tragedy, I think. You come out of it better if you come out of it.
Stronger.
Yes, really. And so I took the art more seriously and I studied it more seriously. And so everything affected the creativity. Yes. And so I enjoyed teaching. I really loved it because it was a way of creating things too, and they just walked out of the classroom afterwards. But your art doesn't, and it's more serious.
Well, your art, talking about serious, I know, just viewing your art, I can tell as an artist or a human being that your art speaks not only from the mind as a creator, but also from your heart. And so you can relate to your paintings. They're just not a painting, even though they may be of Civil War enactment taken from a photo, but he's got that touch that that this artist really tries to reach the viewer and connect, and you do well at that.
Well, thank you, but I think you can't help it. I think when you create at a certain time in a certain place, you don't even have to try. It's going to look like that time and place later on, when people look back at it in history. So since we're all individuals and we're all unique, you can't help but make a unique piece when you do it.
Well, that's a concept, I understand.
It really is, and you might think it looks like everybody else's, but it doesn't really. And also, you're preserving a little piece of history. Yes. And so it behooves all of us to try to do it. And everyone has a little spark of greatness in them. They just don't fan it enough.
There you go.
So
you got to fan the fire.
That's right, and I really believe that. And older people too, when they start painting, they seem to do better than a younger person even, because the younger person has an advantage because he doesn't have rules to worry about. But the older person has those rules to kind of push out of his way. But I think as you get older, you've seen so much, your eye is better. And so you come along really fast. I've noticed a lot of people that learn to paint as older people seem to really get there faster than I remember doing myself. It took me years.
Oh, yes. Well, we had a gentleman, a spokesman, a couple that I call the Masters of Murals, was on a few weeks ago, and that's the couple that does the murals for the Bass Pro Shops, Canales, McDonald's, what have you. And Roberto Regalado spoke of that. Every time you pick the brush up, every painting, you know, you get better, and it comes easier, it comes faster. He spoke of like 778, and then 779, then 780. It seems to get better. But I think you'll agree with me that the older person, the younger person basically has a free hand.
That's right.
But the older person has those rules, and those sometimes I think are within. Yeah. Because we have the experience in life and the different, we know that it's got to be somewhat on target, or it's not going to be somewhat realistic, or whatever we're trying to express. So I think we think as we would grow more relaxed, but it seems like we want to get it right.
Well, you have to kind of force yourself to let go in a way when you're at that point. And it doesn't have to look like a photograph, for heaven's sakes. No. You know, I take photographs if things are moving, then I can't really draw them while they're moving. Sure. But you still got to realize that a photograph is a flat surface, you know. Yes. It doesn't have the depth that you can put into a painting. Right. You have to exaggerate whatever was in the photograph to make it feel real.
Now, some of your travels, we don't want to run out of time. Some of your travels, you spoke of being in China, and your Civil War battles. That basically, were you commissioned for those Civil War battles?
No, but the Boone County Historical Society had a show of Billy O's painting Missouri, and Karen Glines, who wrote the book.
Which those. Karen and Billy O will be with us June 5th here at the Ground Table. And then Billy O and Karen will be at a book signing at the Capitol Arts Gallery on June 9th.
That's great.
So I'll plug that in for upcoming. So yes, go ahead.
Yeah, they had a talk and an exhibit of the paintings at the Boone County Historical Society. And while I was there, we were all talking about art, and the director asked me if I would do something for a show there. And so she suggested Civil War, and that's how it started.
I see.
And so it started here in Columbia.
So that's an idea. You know, we all paint, and sometimes a series of a theme. I've finally got the paintbrush back out this winter, and basically looked at a theme of paintings. So your theme, though, of the battles west of the Mississippi is very impressive.
The idea was to just do Missouri.
Oh, it was?
Actually, just the Columbia area.
I see.
And so I kept getting interested in different places nearby, and then it was going to just be Missouri. And then Baxter Springs, Kansas had a reenactment and asked me if I would show in their museum. So what started with 35 paintings has now grown to over 100.
Nice.
And I still am not finished with it, because each time I think that I've done the West, I discover another West. You know?
That was Texas, to include Texas?
I have to do Texas next. And then there was Arizona, New Mexico. And recently, a good friend of mine from South Africa, sent me a newspaper clipping on the sort of bicentennial of their experiences, or sesquicentennial of the Civil War for them, which was a story about the Alabama, which was a ship that was a southern, ship on the Confederacy,
Yes, the
but was built in England, and then they attacked all of the Union ships, like whalers and things. They sunk about 50 whaling ships off the coast of Oregon and Washington, and trying to disrupt the whaling business. So I thought, well, now I'm going to have to go out in the ocean there to get the West completely.
What an experience. So you're not finished with this project.
No, I don't know how I'll find the ship. I don't think it's around anymore.
I attended one of your exhibits when you was a guest speaker. Are you anything in the plans for another time when our viewers can go and view some of your paintings and listen to your story? It's taken you since the show.
Sure. I don't have a date yet, but it's going to be at the Civil War Museum at Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis this year.
Oh, excellent.
But we haven't set the date on it yet. But it's getting out of hand. I didn't mean to do this much. I like to do other things. I did a series on Lewis and Clark in Missouri.
Yes.
And it traveled around also. And then I did this series in China. I think about 50 watercolors that traveled. Excellent. And some of them stayed over there, but...
So you are familiar with traveling with your exhibits.
Yes, that started with the Chinese.
With the Chinese, okay. So
then,
a lot of times the questions come to me about how to get your art marketed, or you've got to exhibit. So, and you used to have your own gallery, I believe, at one point.
That's what I had one for 10 years, yes, in
10
Rolla.
years.
But my wife passed away and I sold it. But
I see.
We had gone to Saudi Arabia on a job. I was there teaching for Aramco Oil, and so I painted a lot of paintings of Saudi Arabia and the back scenes and things. That was also shown in Jefferson City.
Oh my!
That was back in about '84 also. I came back. We were there from '81 to '84, but all of that was historical in a sense. I was doing it all because things were disappearing. And it bothers me that things get away before we can, it's like we should always interview our parents before they're gone.
I believe so.
And type it up, and have a record of something of their past. History gets away from you if you don't do it.
I take care of the family genealogy on one side, and that is a must. I feel I've taking care of it, and now it's going to be handed down. Right. Well, Mr. Woodward, Dan, it's been a pleasure. Looking forward to this for so long, to be with you here at JCTV Spotlight on the Arts. So, do you have any closing words that we could close out on?
Well, not sure my words are all that valuable, but I would just...
With your experience in travels, you share with our viewers what it really means to you and hope it means to them.
Well, in a sense, a work of art outlives yourself and the times.
Yes.
So a work of art, a book, a quilt, or...
a symphony.
Yeah, anything that you might do creatively is going to live much longer than you do, and maybe much longer than the other people. It will be around for a long time, and I think that's a nice thing to leave your family, if nothing else.
And our viewers. So once again, thank you,
You're welcome.
Dan, for being here. Don't forget, we'll be interviewing again soon, so please stay with us. Watch for the airings on Mediacom and CenturyLink, and don't forget YouTube. They'll be there forever. Join our viewers in China and Brazil and Italy, around the world, New Zealand, that I get responses from. So thank you, viewers, for being with us, and as we listen to each artist speak from the heart and from the mind. My sincere thanks goes out to JCTV producer and station manager Gloria Enlow and her crew. And again, I thank you viewers for being with us, keeping tuned in through the different venues, especially on YouTube. I'm Rick J. saying, see you next time.
it.